The real version of this Liebherr LTM 1400 was built in the 1990s, and it had a maximum lifting capacity of 400 tons. This model of it by YCC is delivered in a robust outer shipping container, and that provides proper protection to the model box inside. The box itself is Liebherr branded, and it has line drawings of the real crane on the outside. Pulling out the insides, the model is contained within a pair of expanded polystyrene trays, and the first thing to look at is the manual. The cautionary note directs you to read about handling the model without damaging it, and the first part of the manual is a reprint of original Liebherr information. The rest of the manual is about the model, and it's really good. One really nice touch on the packaging is that the two trays are clipped together, and that's so much better than having to cut tape. With the lid separated, we can take a look inside the box, and many of the parts are wrapped in soft paper. Also included is a nice little commemorative keyring. Also in the box are many bags of small parts, and most of them are properly labelled so you can tie them up to the instructions in the manual. There was only one small defect on the review model, and that's a loose engine cover. But YCC's customer service is very good, and they sent the part needed to make the fix. You can see what a small part it is, and that just shows you the kind of model engineering involved in this model. Using our old friend super glue and fat fingers and thumbs, a good repair could be made. To start the assembly, we'll put the crane in transport mode, and we'll begin by assembling and connecting up the Superlift. The first thing you can notice is that the connections are made with very small pins, and many of them are of different sizes. So for sure you definitely don't want to be dropping the pins on the floor, and if you are handling the model you need to make sure the pins aren't working free. A spool of thread is provided, and the manual tells you what lengths you need for the various winches. So for the Superlift, a length of thread has been cut, and we start by fixing one end at the tying off point. You feed it through the hole, tie a knot, and then tidy up the loose end. After that, the thread is taken through the Superlift arrangement, and then tied off and wound up on the winch. At the back of the crane carrier there are an interesting couple of options. One is to attach a spare wheel holder, or if you don't anticipate getting a puncture in the display case, you can add a toolbox instead. There's also a choice of options for the windscreen in the crane cab. There's an open version for when the crane's operating, but we'll fit the closed one here and use a little bit of plastic putty to help keep the windscreen in place. And if you do that, it's a bit like glazing a real window, but with giant mega huge hands. Moving on, and the real crane had its own system for storing the outrigger pads during transport. On each side of the crane there's a little loader arm, and the pads can be positioned on it and the arm folded back into a transport position. Another tiny detail on the crane is that there are separate wheel chocks, and they get positioned in their own holder. Moving on, we've cut another length of thread and are now tying it onto the main winch drum. And the good thing is that the winch drum has a positive brake action. For this assembly we'll add on the smallest of the 3 hooks that come with the crane. But to do that it's easier to raise the boom a little, so we need to install the locking screws into the main cylinder rams. Once they're in, we can easily raise the boom and then lock it into a pose using the tool that's provided. Reeving the hook is a little bit tricky because of its high precision and the restraining bars, but there is a proper tying off cleat that gets pinned to the top of the boom. There's also a Hoist cutoff chain which has got an incredibly small connection at the top of the boom. In fact, this small connection is a great indicator of the precision of this model. Once the chain is attached, the bottom is clipped onto the hoist rope. With the boom up, we'll add a toolbox cover to the crane carrier, and then we'll move on to the front where there's an attachment point for the hook. As you see, those pins are very small and you don't want to lose them. With the pin in place, there's then a tiny length of chain which you can use to secure the hook. In this section there's one more thing to add which again illustrates the attention to detail on this model, and it's a small magnetic cover for the screw on the ram. And you can see how magnetic it is because it's flown off to the side and attached itself to an outrigger pad. But if we persuade it to come loose, we can then stick it on the locking screw for the ram. With that done, the model is all set up in transport configuration, and with some other models we can set up a transport diorama. Looking underneath, the detail is very good in terms of the steering and suspension components, and it's all modelled in metal. The wheels are very good with Michelin and tyre details in the tyre sidewalls. The carrier cab is finely detailed, including internally, and that continues on behind the cab with fans visible below the grille and a really nice exhaust system. The outriggers are all metal with sharp graphics, and there's really fine detailing on the outrigger pads. The view inside the crane cab is also excellent with all of the instruments modelled. There are plenty of hydraulic hoses and some very nice walkways and mesh grills on the body. Another very nice aspect is the really sharp detailing on the counterweight. The main boom rams are metal and there's nice detailing on the boom itself. There's fine detail at the collars, including working rollers and boom locks. And there's also good detailing at the boom head with free rolling metal pulleys. The Superlift arrangement is also good with all of the brackets on the structure having usable holes. There are 3 different hook blocks supplied with the model, and they are very high quality. The hooks rotate, and they also have spring-loaded working safety catches. Inside the blocks there are retaining bars and metal pulleys. We'll start with the crane in upside down mode. There is linked steering on some of the axles, and there's a realistically implemented suspension on all of the axles. At the front of the crane all 4 axles are linked together, and it's a model engineering challenge to get all 4 axles to steer and steer proportionately. Moving out onto the test track, and the crane rolls along well in a straight line. All of the tyres are properly grounded and each of the axles holds its position. Let's now give it a test of the steering, and the 4 front axles are linked together, as are the 2 rear axles. And with that the crane is able to follow a shallow curve. There are some very small working features on the carrier, and that includes fold down access ladders. And the cover on the control console for the outriggers also opens. With the access ladders down we can begin to set up the crane, and we'll start by unloading the outrigger pads. With the pads laid out we can then pull out the 2-stage outrigger beams, and these can be set at either 50% or 100% extension. The pistons just unscrew to reveal a smooth piston surface, and another very nice touch on the model is that the pads are magnetic, so they'll stick onto the pistons while you put in the spreader plates underneath. Another very tiny detail is that locking pins are provided to be able to lock the outrigger beams. The whole outrigger arrangement is strong on the model because it will support the crane wheels free. Next we can fire up the crane and start by swinging the cab into its operating position. Next we'll take off the cover cap for the ram screws, and then we can smoothly raise the boom into an operating position. Once it's there it's locked into place with the screws. The counterweight attaches to a secondary winch assembly, and to make that look a bit more realistic we can add the thread that's left over on the spool, and to do that we'll tie the end onto the winch drum and then wind all the thread on using some nifty wrist action. And that leaves us with the winch drum looking more realistic. The winch assembly sits on top of the main counterweight plates, and it's secured in position using some more of the very tiny pins. Once it's fixed, the real crane would turn round and pick up its own counterweight, but in the model world you need to manually fit the counterweight on. To secure it there's another piece of micro model engineering, combined with yet another small pin. Again this is all very high quality model engineering, and it also includes connecting up some hydraulic lines to the main crane body. With the counterweight attached you can then load up with more blocks if you want. Another great detail to improve the look of the model is this piece which goes into the secondary winch assembly. For the next part we've detached the Superlift assembly and we can telescope the boom. A great feature of the model is that it replicates the locking pins that the real crane used to have, and they're spring loaded and you pull them out so that you can raise the telescopic boom section. The model also accurately replicates the real machine because it has boom locking holes at the 50%, 92% and 100% extension positions. And here the crane is set up with all sections at a 50% boom lock. To open up the Superlift you use a special key in the Superlift winch, and you carefully unwind it as you raise up the Superlift. Using the Superlift tensions up the boom, allowing heavier loads to be lifted. And here's the crane at full extension with the Superlift in operation. So how big is the model at maximum height? Well, with the tape out, it's about 42 inches or 107 centimetres. There are plenty of other features on the model, including opening driving cab doors. And the two covers for the engine on the carry are also open. And that lets you see a really nicely detailed metal engine. The crane cab also features a nice tilting mechanism. And it's also got a sliding door, which works quite well too. But there's more, because there's opening engine covers on the crane. And the silver heads that you can see are magnets, which are used to keep the covers shut in a closed position. Even the optional toolbox at the rear has got opening doors. In summary, YCC has produced a very high quality precision model. Of course it's not cheap, but it does include excellent detailing and excellent functionality as well. And at the time of the review, this is the best mass-produced crane model seen by Cranes Etc. If you're looking for the best, then this model is certainly outstanding.